Ever get that feeling like you're going around and around a problem and you just know there's some really important thing you're missing?
Oh, totally. That's the worst. You feel stuck.
Yeah, but sometimes the real breakthrough isn't about finding that missing piece. It's more about how you work with the pieces you do have. And that's what we're diving into today, this really cool demonstration of exactly that.
What's really interesting about this one is that it shows how to actually use these advanced conversational techniques to help someone solve a problem. We get to see part of an advanced training session where the trainer, Virginie, is working with two therapists and they're doing this role play,
Right. So one therapist is pretending to be a client named Rosie, and she tells Virginie about this nighttime teeth grinding problem she's been having.
which sounds pretty ordinary, right? I mean, lots of people grind their teeth at night.
Yeah, and her partner had noticed it, and her dentist had confirmed it, and she even had a bite guard made. But here's the thing that makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's how Virginie handles things when Rosie very deliberately doesn't tell her something crucial.
Exactly. So we're not really focusing on teeth grinding itself, but on how it's possible to make progress and get these profound insights even when the person doesn't want to share everything.
And that brings up a really interesting question for you listening. How do you help someone understand and solve a problem when you know they're not giving you the whole story?
It's a tough one for sure.
Yeah. So, our mission today isn't to get all deep into hypnosis techniques or anything. It's more about seeing how a skilled guide can help someone connect the dots even with limited information and end up with a surprisingly effective outcome.
Awesome.
So let's start with how Rosie initially presented her concern. So she talks about the nighttime teeth grinding, and like we said, her partner noticed it.
And it's worth pointing out that Rosie had tried to do something about it. Her dentist recommended and fitted her with a bite guard, but she wasn't comfortable sleeping with it. And that highlights something we see all the time. The solution that seems obvious isn't always practical for the individual.
Totally. Makes sense. She also said that she noticed the grinding was worse during times when she was really stressed, specifically when she was working as a registered nurse in a psychiatric ward.
Oh, wow. That's a demanding job.
Yeah. She talked about how intense that environment was and how hard it was to unwind after her shifts.
Yeah, no surprise there. It makes sense that we see physical symptoms popping up during stressful periods. But what's interesting is that Rosie said the teeth grinding kept happening even after she left that job.
Yeah, that is interesting. It makes you wonder if the initial stress kind of set up a pattern that her body just kept following.
Almost like it was on autopilot.
Exactly, like a chain reaction that just keeps going. But this is where the session takes a really big turn. Virginie asks Rosie if she had any other stressful things happening after leaving her job at the psychiatric ward.
And instead of answering right away, Rosie hesitates. She asks about who's going to be listening to the recording of this session, mentioning past and future students, and expressing concern about disclosing something to a bigger audience.
Oh, I see. That hesitation is a big clue, right? It tells you there's something sensitive going on.
Absolutely. And reminds us how important it is to create trust and a sense of safety when you're trying to help someone explore personal issues. Rosie was uncomfortable sharing something specific with a wider group. But Virginie's response here is so smart. She immediately tells Rosie she doesn't have to disclose anything she doesn't want to.
Yeah, that's key. Making it okay for her to keep things private.
And what's fascinating is that Virginie explicitly says it's okay for Rosie to not share. She says there are other ways, and that not revealing information will not block progress.
Oh, so she's making it clear that they can still move forward even if Rosie keeps some things to herself.
Right. And then she emphasizes you don't have to go into details. We still can talk about the situation without talking about it.
So it's like she's saying, you're in control here. You don't have to reveal everything.
Exactly. And that seems to give Rosie the space to continue. She admits that she has realized there was another stressor, but repeats that she'd prefer not to share the specifics publicly.
But the important part is that even without giving details, Rosie makes a direct connection between the secret stressor and her teeth grinding at night. That's the big aha moment we're looking for.
Totally. She describes this connection as something that just clicked for her, a validation she hadn't felt before, even though other people had pointed out the teeth grinding.
And suddenly she understands why it's happening without having to say exactly what the stressor is. It's kind of amazing, isn't it?
It really shows how powerful internal connections can be. Sometimes just bringing something from the back of your mind into focus, even without talking about it out loud, allows you to make connections you were missing before. Even just recognizing the link inside can be really powerful.
So after this big internal breakthrough, Virginie asks Rosie how she's feeling about everything. And Rosie's answer gives us a really interesting perspective.
What's cool is she talks about her body communicating with her. She expresses gratitude for the teeth grinding because it was her body's way of signaling that she was stressed.
Wow. So she completely reframes the symptom. Instead of seeing it as a bad thing, she sees it as a form of communication.
Exactly. And she clarifies that the stress wasn't actually the job in the psychiatric ward itself because she was sad to leave for health reasons. The stress was another thing, which again refers back to the information she chose to keep private.
Right, right.
And she gives another example, remembering a time when she was helping with her husband's business. And she was dealing with language barriers and the pressures of a small business, and noticed an increase in her teeth grinding then. So this shows that she's becoming more aware of when her stress levels are affecting this particular physical symptom.
So she's starting to understand the connection between her stress and the teeth grinding.
Yeah. And then Rosie talks about how she's been actively trying to listen to her body and using stress management techniques and setting boundaries. This is a tangible positive result of the session, a deeper understanding of herself and taking steps towards well-being.
Absolutely.
And maybe the most significant outcome is when she comes back to the original problem. She mentions that the nighttime teeth grinding is now just occasional. It only happens 2 or 3 times a month. This suggests a real and major shift in the underlying issue, even though they didn't discuss the specifics of that other stressor.
So they made progress without having to delve into all the details. Now, let's think about Rosie's point of view as the learner in this situation, the therapist who is playing the role of the client. At the end of the role play, she expresses genuine surprise at what happened.
She was really struck by the fact that a conversation without any formal hypnosis techniques could get to the heart of some pretty big underlying issues so quickly.
Yeah, and she realized how powerful it is to focus on what resonates with the individual and what has an impact on them without having to deeply examine specific traumatic events or detailed explanations.
And this is the key point that stood out to her. She was amazed that meaningful work could be done even when someone intentionally keeps something hidden, emphasizing, don't need to know, don't need to suggest.
So she's saying that you don't necessarily need to pry into everything to help someone.
Exactly. Rosie's experience in that moment showed that trusting the process and the person's own inner resources can be incredibly powerful in unlocking understanding. She even described it as feeling like she was in an elevator going straight to the core issues.
That's a great analogy, and she brings up a really thought-provoking question. She wonders if her subconscious mind will keep working on both the issues she talked about and the ones she kept private.
Oh, that's so interesting. It suggests that our minds keep processing things even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Exactly. And the session can be like a catalyst, setting in motion further internal processing and integration that continues long after the actual interaction.
Like planting a seed.
Right. Finally, let's look at the insights from the trainer, Virginie, about this whole process. She emphasizes how important it is to explore the presenting problem and pay attention to those unconscious moments that come up in the conversation.
She points out Rosie's spontaneous realization as a natural unfolding, highlighting that these moments of insight often emerge organically when the environment is supportive and the guidance is skillful. It's not about forcing an answer, but creating the right conditions for it to appear.
And Virginie explains that the main goal is for the client to feel a change internally, even if they need external validation, like Rosie's partner noticing less grinding, to confirm the change in behavior. The internal shift in understanding is often the most important first step.
And she repeats a really important principle. The unconscious mind has its own wisdom and knows the best way to go and how deep to go without needing to be forced or directed with specific knowledge of every single detail. It's about trusting the individual's inner guidance and respecting their boundaries.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main message for you? It's the powerful demonstration that major insights and real problem solving can happen even when crucial information is deliberately withheld. This really highlights the skill of the facilitator in guiding a process based on trust and deep respect for the person's comfort level.
And the look of total surprise and the aha moment that Rosie, the therapist playing the client, experienced perfectly illustrates the unexpected power of this approach. It really challenges what we think we know about what's necessary for meaningful progress and change to occur.
And that leaves us with a final question for you to consider. How might understanding that solutions can come about, even without full disclosure, change how you approach understanding and resolving challenges in your own life or when interacting with others?
Could focusing on the process and the individual's internal experience be more effective than insisting on knowing every single detail?
And think about the potential of these more conversational and indirect methods for uncovering hidden connections and bringing about positive change, especially in situations where being totally open and transparent is difficult or maybe even impossible.
It's definitely something to think about.
In the end, this deep dive reminds us of the amazing ability our minds have to heal and gain understanding, often in ways we least expect. It's about developing trust in that inner wisdom, both within ourselves and in the people we want to help.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.